Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Got some updates on the rusty T4. So in the last update we obviously got this passenger side rear quarter fitted along with the inner arch, and I built out this whole sort of corner section here, and I mentioned that I needed to do the exact same on the driver's side. Well, that's now done. So it was basically a mirror image of what I had to do on the other side. So I've totally built out this section here underneath as well, which I'll show you in a sec. The inner arch is on and the rear quarter itself. I've done this one slightly different in that I welded it along this swage here, right along, as opposed to sort of up here where I did on the previous panel. I think it was better doing it from the swage. It was a bit stronger. The panel wasn't warping quite as much. I wasn't 100% sure the best way to join it to this sort of side panel. So I've basically just welded it up in this channel and ground that back. So there's still, there's still a bit of a step to put the sort of factory sealant stuff. So, and the reason I've not welded it along here is because I'll be replacing this panel right along, and it runs to about sort of where I've made this mark. So I thought best not to weld down here just in case I do need to cut up to this height. Yep, the inner arch is spot welded to the quarter. You can see some of the welds just ground back. I also had to rebuild this section here, just where it joins to the trailing arm mount. Because yeah, this bit was rotten and there was no sort of good lip in here to weld the inner arch to. And then in this corner section, just the same as the other side, I've made up a piece with some swaged holes. And then I've made up this sort of corner bit here that the rear quarter is stitched to. This is that flat bit that you see inside the van. And of course the chassis leg is all sort of welded back in as well to keep things nice and strong. And there's a hole here. This is for the bumper to run through where it mounts to here and here. The corner section was actually worse on this side. So this sort of piece here, I had to actually cut out a fair bit of that and replace that before I then made the sort of box section chassis bit. So yep, that's that part. Here's that panel I mentioned from underneath. The inner arch is just stitched along like I did on the other side. And you can see on the quarter where I've joined the two lips. So I actually put a step in the quarter itself, so it butted up quite nicely to the swage on the actual van's panel. So that was quite a nice one to weld actually. I just took my time, and then, as I say, we skim a filler on the outside, and see, it looks pretty good. Not too bad. The other sections I've repaired. So this van, I believe, had barn doors to start with. You can see the hinge points. There was hinge points here as well, which were absolutely rotten. So I've cut out the outer skin and I've welded a skin on top just to smooth that out. And the same at the other side. So these ones are fine. I can just sort of clean them back. And then on this side, I've just had to cut out this section and weld in a plate. It all looks fairly good and solid now. You might also notice as well, there's now a sort of rear valance on the van. That was a fair bit of work. Essentially, you can just sort of see the welds there. I had to cut this panel right out because it was rotten underneath. I then had to sort of rebuild this top skin, and I put 2 riv nuts in it to hold the latch down. And I've had to sort of build out this curved section here. And then of course I made this valance that then welded to that as well. So from the underside, this is the valance panel that I made. Obviously it's welded right up to the chassis rails there. And then this is that kind of curved panel, and the tailgate latch sort of sits inside that. So welding's not the best here, but it's solid. And it's going to get covered in under seal and whatnot. So another small repair was on the sort of seal, the tailgate seal here, from round about here to here. This bit was all sort of rotting away. The two skins were splitting, so I've fixed that. You just see some of the welds there. So it's nice and solid now. The chassis itself, I've managed to clean up the entire rear half of the chassis. So basically anything that's sort of exposed here. Cleaned all that right back, cleaned back any rust that I found. There was 1 or 2 pinholes that I welded up, but overall it's not too bad. Quite hard to get into all these sections here. I was using a little finger sander and different drill bits and stuff. But anyway, all that's sort of nailed in epoxy primer just to protect it and seal it up. You'll notice as well, I obviously put this cross member in the last video. I've now also just braced it from here to here as well, and the same at this side. So the chassis should be pretty strong now, stronger than it would have been from factory, hopefully. And as I say, it's all coated in epoxy primer, ready to get a floor pan basically. So yeah, the next thing to do in the van is to get the floor pan in, which will be a good one. There's 1 or 2 things I need to do first. I also need to clean back all this to good metal just to see what we're working with. I've got a couple of repair patches just to fit to this cross member. So I've made them up, they're ready to zap in. And then I sort of just need to decide where I'm taking the floor up to, the new floor. Because the new floor sections don't sort of come down to a flat piece like this. They're kind of like this, where they've just got the ridges from the bottom to the top. So I just need to kind of suss it out how I'm going to fit those. I've only got 2 of them, and they don't quite fit the width of here. So I think there might be some strips of flat steel section, but we'll suss all that out, and I think that'll be the next video. Some progress on other fronts too. So we've managed to strip the old arms to get the caliper carriers off, and I've got new bolts to fit them to the trailing arms. I'll obviously need to get new discs, new pads and new calipers as well. I think these are a bit beyond saving. May as well just get new ones. And I picked up a pair of second-hand arms for pretty cheap. So these have been powder coated previously, and then I think they've just sat for a while and never actually got built up. So the bearing race was a wee bit rusty, but I think it's cleaned up okay. These bits have cleaned up fine, ready to take the bushes. And there's just a little bit of sort of surface rust pushing through, which I'll be able to clean back. They were obviously going a bit in here before whoever's got them powder coated. So I think the plan would be to try bare metal some of this, and I'll just see if I can fill these bits with weld just to strengthen them up a little bit. Yeah, other than that, these arms are good to go in terms of being built up. So I've got some goodies here. Bushes for the inner, bushes for the outer, new wheel bearings. This is the bolts for the carriers to the trailing arms. You still get them from VW. Got new hubs here. new hubs to push into the bearings. And then obviously we'll need the calipers, pads, sliding pins, all that stuff. We'll also need shocks and springs to get the van rolling again. But yeah, we're certainly moving forward with it. So I think that's it for this one. As always, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next update. Cheers.